Hello and welcome back to the Opposites Abroad podcast, the podcast covering all things travel. Charlie Bosco here, joined as ever by my good friend TT down in Denver. No guest this week, it's just the two of us, and we're talking about what I consider to be the greatest city on earth, which is
Birmingham, UK.
Almost. You're in the right country. You just 100, 200. You're a few miles north of the reality. We're talking London.
Well, thank you for using miles.
Yeah, sorry, I knew if I said kilometers,
I'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
No point. But they also use miles in the UK, so it's the appropriate
Really?
measure. Yeah.
Wow, you think I'd know that?
Yeah, because when I used to live in mainland Europe, I used to drive back.
Yeah.
And you'd be ripping through the kilometers, so whatever, it's 300 kilometers to Calais, and the K's tick by really fast, and then I'd get off the ferry in England to drive to my folks' place, and suddenly the numbers would go by really slowly because I was on miles. I mean, I know the distance, the distance.
And
what about? It just bugged me when the numbers weren't going by fast enough.
What about where you live in Canada? Is it miles or kilometers?
Oh, Canada's we're kilometers, but Canada's a mess, man.
But isn't Canada like weird? Like it uses some metric things and then some like imperial things.
Oh, you get pounds. They measure cooking things are measured in cups. The date, they haven't decided whether the day or the month comes first when you write the date. So 0406 could be the 6th of June, or it could be the 6th of April. Anyway, it's a mess. It is a mess. But we do use kilometers up here. Distances are all Ks, so that's one good thing.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, London. In my humble opinion, albeit people would say I'm biased as a Brit, but I haven't lived in Britain for nearly 20 years, so I don't think I'm too biased. But and I'd barely been to London when I left England, ironically, but spent a lot of time there in the intervening years, and in my opinion, it is the best city on earth.
And why?
Okay, well, let's get into it. I think it is completely iconic. I think London... What I always say to people, if you haven't been to London, is it will be exactly what you want it to be. No one goes to London and goes, you know what? I really didn't think it would be like it was. I thought it would be X, and it turned out to be Y. London will be exactly what you picture it. It'll be Big Ben, red buses, the Underground, the Thames... Change of the Guard, all the things you say, the City of London. You could go on and on. I mean, the number of iconic sites in London is more or less endless. But it's just exactly what you hope it's going to be, and you hope it's going to be amazing, and it is. And I would just say, actually, I grew up in the north, and when you grow up in the north, there is a disdain towards London. And although it's only... Amazingly, from the nearest big train station near where I grew up, it's a 2-hour train ride to London. I didn't go for the first time until I was probably 13, and I think by the time I left high school, I'd been twice. And London was alien to me. And it's hard to describe that somewhere a couple of 100 miles away can feel so distant and different from where you live, but it really does. And when you grow up in the north, people kind of look down their nose at London, and Londoners look down their nose at people from the north. But it really is a different universe from everywhere else in the British Isles. It's completely different from anywhere else. And it's only since not being a resident of the UK, but having work and life take me back to London quite regularly, that I've really come to appreciate it. And I've gone from really not getting a lot out of it to thinking it's just absolutely amazing. Although, I have to say, I couldn't live there. But if I go for 3-4 days, I'm like a pig in muck. I think it's amazing.
It's been a long time since I've been to London, but I have been a few times. And I have a really good memory of when I got out of college, British Airways came to Denver, and you could fly to London for very cheap for a little bit, and my dad and I went. And it was just a kind of dad-son trip. I was fresh out of college, just starting my life. And it was such a fun time with my dad because it was London like you said, you can kind of find different things, and it was so much as things my dad loved, which is history, nautical things. We went up to Portsmouth and did some other things, but just going to the Tower of London and the British Museum and seeing all the plunder is just, it's really cool. And then fish and chips and the pub scene is, we've talked about before, but I don't think you can top a UK pub anywhere in the world for a bar.
No. And one of the things I miss in the UK, as I say, I think I last lived permanently in the UK in 2007, but I've never found a place with better pubs. I've lived in Austria, and they've got great pubs, and they've got a real fun beer scene and everything, but going into a pub in the UK that has a stone cobbled floor and getting a pint of British beer served at room temperature with a thick creamy head and leaning on the brass what's it called, like the brass tube on the bar, I just think it's an unbeatable experience. And yeah, I think British pubs are unique. They're the best pubs in the world.
Yeah.
And if you don't like fish and chips, then I just don't really feel like me and you can be friends.
Well, as a reminder, I think I mentioned before, but I did do go to college a little bit in the UK, in England, and Arundel and Sussex. Now people think of Arundel, they think of Frozen.
Yeah.
But there actually isn't an Arundel. There's a Duke of Arundel and everything, but I would consider myself a Anglophile, I guess is the term.
An Anglophile.
Anglophile, yeah. I love British music, and the Cool Britannia of the 90s was such a neat time, and that was the time that I was in England in school. And I think, and I've mentioned this before too, but whenever anybody says to me, I'm not super well traveled, I want to start going international, I don't know where to go, what do you think? I always say go to London.
Yeah,
I think that's the best first trip for somebody that's, unless you want to just sit on the beach somewhere, but if you're actually looking for a real international experience, go to London. There's so much to do there. You can speak the language if you're from the US. It's just an amazing place, and there's so much history. And you go to one of those pubs, I mean, unbelievable people drank at those pubs. Like people that before the founding of the United States were drinking at those pubs.
Yeah, and London is one of those places. It's kind of like DC in that when you're there, you feel like you're in the middle of something. If you go to the average city, I mean, I love Denver where you live, but it's just a great place. When you're in London, you feel like the world is happening here. This is one of the real capitals of the world. Yeah. And sadly, Brexit has done an awful lot to damage London, but London was really, certainly financially, but I think culturally was in so many ways the capital of cultural Europe, and probably still is.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brexit's certainly not been great for London. But I think that's one of the amazing things about London. I think the other great thing about it, especially for new travellers, is one of the best things you can do in London is just wander around. And you can definitely walk into bad areas. There are definitely some pretty unpleasant parts of London, but you won't be in any doubt when you're in one. You can smell it. You can see it. They look different. If you are in central London, anywhere between Battersea Power Station and, say, the Cutty Sark, anywhere on the river, basically, you're not going to wander into any bad neighbourhoods. You can just walk and walk and walk, and any pub you go into will be interesting, and it will serve interesting beer. And I just think it's one of the best cities in the world to just walk. And I always, when I'm in London, I always try and factor in walking everywhere. So it's not always realistic between meetings and stuff, but if I can engineer an hour between meetings or between appointments or whatever, I'll always try and walk. I think it's one of the best walking cities in the world.
Well, and I think the best cities in the world generally are ones that are known for their neighborhoods. And the worst ones it's just a city and you've no idea how it's broken up. And London, you've got, and you're going to have to correct my how I pronounce Carnaby Street,
Yeah.
where a lot of the fashion was so huge in the '60s with the mods and rockers, and you've got Camden Town, and you've got just so many these cool little neighborhoods, and it's one of those places where you could go and you could stay in a different area every time and see different things, and you stay in a different bed and breakfast, and you have your full English breakfast, and you go wander around that area, and it's just, yeah, it's really cool, and I would love to go back more, and the problem is every time I look at going, I'm like, I could spend a week somewhere I haven't been, and I end up going somewhere else, but I really would love to spend more time and explore more than I have.
Yeah, I think it's full of amazing neighborhoods. You can go to, I don't want to list them all, but you take somewhere like Hammersmith. There's kind of a break. So if you walk from central London to Hammersmith, you walk through loads of housing and nothing really, and then when you arrive in Hammersmith, there's kind of a whole new town.
Yeah,
and
there's that great Clash song. What's it called? White Man in Hammersmith's Palace.
Hammersmith Apollo. Well, I don't know if it's Hammersmith Apollo is a famous music venue there.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's what it's about.
And there's so many songs about Hammersmith. I don't know why it is. Motorhead had an album, No Sleep Till Hammersmith, and it's just. But it's interesting because it's kind of detached from London, and like you say, there are all these areas so you could walk and think, I'm kind of getting out of it here. I might head back to town, but actually, if you just keep walking, you'll find this whole new neighbourhood. And I think that's one of the amazing elements of London is that there's the downtown, there's the iconic bit, but then there are all these other neighbourhoods. I've already mentioned Greenwich, Hammersmith, places like that are standalone areas, and you could happily spend a few days in each of them exploring. Should we do recommendations? I mean, if you were, I know you haven't spent as much time there in recent years as you'd like, but for someone who's going to London for the first time, what are you telling them to do?
I would tell them, unless they have super specific interests, I would tell them go to the British Museum.
Which is a beautiful building as well as an amazing museum.
It is, and it's literally stuff like I alluded to before that the British Empire plundered from all over the world and brought back there.
Yeah, we don't talk about that.
The Elgin marbles are there, which are still a big thing because they were basically taken from the Parthenon by the British. And I will tell you that it's an interesting thing when you talk about stuff like that, because when you're young, you can be really idealistic and everything's black and white, and you can say, well, the British shouldn't have taken this stuff and they should have given it all back. But you have to understand, too, that if the British hadn't taken a lot of that stuff, it would have been destroyed. It wouldn't exist anymore. And so sometimes some good things have come out of maybe things that weren't so great. And there's things in the British Museum that we know would have been destroyed and in civil wars or whatever was going on in other countries, and now they exist because the British basically kept them safe or stole them, or however you want to look at it. So life can be a little bit more complicated. So I would just tell people when you go to that stuff to have an open mind about it. And the Tower of London is amazing. That's such a famous thing. Do you want to talk about, you probably know the history of the Tower of London better than I do.
Yeah, now you've put me on the spot. I know it was certainly where Henry VIII sent anyone who opposed him. And I agree that it's one of the most amazing sites because it is completely unchanged. And actually, one of the most moving experiences I had in London was in 2014, so the anniversary of the beginning of World War One. They filled all the surrounding moats. So the Tower of London has a moat, which obviously back in the day was a necessary security precaution. And they filled all the moats with poppies. So the whole tower was surrounded by red poppies floating in the moat. And it looks stunning. So yeah, Tower of London is fantastic. Tower Bridge is also absolutely beautiful. I've never been into the towers on Tower Bridge, but apparently you can go up there.
Is that the same bridge from London Bridge is falling down?
No, there's London Bridge. but there's also Tower Bridge.
Okay.
I think when most people say London Bridge, they mean Tower Bridge, but yeah, it's stunning. So yeah, Tower of London, Tower Bridge, absolutely recommended. Anything else jumping to mind?
I think it. If you're into literature, I would go to the Globe.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's another building where you think that is. Just think who stood here.
Yeah, it's a recreation basically in the same location supposedly, but it's a recreation of Shakespeare's theater. I mean, how do you top that? I would definitely go to pubs. I would get fish and chips. I would get some curry. I'd have a full English breakfast somewhere. I would try some different local beers. I would try a cider, just to try something a little bit different. And then if you're into music and history, I would go to like Carnaby Street. If you there's all kinds of music venues. I think the Marquee Club is still there. That's where like so many bands played. Sex Pistols played some of their first stuff there. Like it's kind of like CBGB for the United States, which no longer exists, but the Marquee Club I think is still there. And then wander around. What's a huge park called?
Well, there's so many. There's Hyde Park.
Hyde Park.
Yeah.
I'd go through there and walk through there and walk down to see the changing of the guard and you know all that stuff. Hopefully you can get a glimpse of Prince Andrew when he's when he's driving by.
I'm not sure he's allowed into London anymore. I think he'd get lynched.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think just wandering is great. One thing I've done a few times is rent a bike, and that's a great way of seeing London. You slightly taking your life into your hands, dealing with London traffic on a bike.
Yeah.
But it's a great way of covering ground. Because one of the issues, although the underground is iconic and it's a fantastic way to get around, it's very efficient.
Yes.
But it's all
mind the gap.
Yeah, it's all in the name. You're underground, and so it's fun to ride it and experience that. Yeah. The next train for Cockfosters will.
Yeah.
Actually, I know someone.
You have to really mind the gap at Cockfosters.
I actually know someone who lived in London and was so fascinated because every time they got on the tube, they heard this train terminates at Cockfosters, and they thought, you know what, I gotta go. And one day I
gotta go see what's there.
On a rainy Saturday, they just got the train to Cockfosters. And
what's there?
It's just houses and a few shops. I mean, yeah, it's just nothing there, but it's like. It's one of those names you just know because this train terminates at Cockfosters. Is something
Did he buy? That's a place I guess you'd want a magnet for your fridge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I would say renting a bike is a great way to see London.
Well, and I would say I think you know when you said be careful, I think one of the things to be really careful about if you're from the United States, especially if you're on a bike, is look both ways before you cross the street.
Yeah, I struggle
because you
will
get run over when you're looking to the wrong direction and traffic's on the other side of the road.
Yeah,
you're going to get run over.
Yeah, I having lived out in right-hand driving countries for 18 years, I have to be very careful in London. So yeah, 100%. The other thing I would say is just wander, just walk. Particularly wandering the river again, Battersea Power Station to say the Cutty Sark ship.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, you can't stay on the river the whole way. So there's sections of it where you're on the river and sections of it where it goes through private property or whatever, and you get pushed off. But if you walk that section of river, you will see Big Ben, the London Eye, all the sites in Westminster. Battersea Power Station itself is pretty amazing. Then you go past Battersea Bridge, London Bridge, Canary Wharf, the City of London, Shakespeare's Globe, Tower of London, Cutty Sark itself. It's just site after site after site. So just walking the river is one of the great pleasures of London for me.
Is there anything that's overrated in London?
You know what? I don't think that Buckingham Palace.
Okay.
So ugly, so grey, so unpalace / castle like. It's really an ugly building. I mean, you got to see it, and it's right there, so you might as well see it. But it's not a beautiful building. But most of the stuff, people that live in London, I know a lot of people that live in London, they're kind of scathing. Some of them, everyone wants to see Big Ben, everyone wants to see Downing Street, everyone wants to change the garden. You think, yeah, because it's amazing. And the only reason you don't think it's amazing is you've kind of been dulled by being here for so long. It's like if you've got a great view out of your window, you take it for granted a little bit more than someone that's never seen it before. But no, I think I don't want to say cliched, but the classic London sites are fantastic. Yeah, Big Ben is stunning. The intricacy of the building, the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben is stunning. Downing Street, albeit you can't walk down Downing Street for obvious security reasons, but you can look through the security gate and you can see the famous door of number 10 where the Prime Minister lives. And changing of the guard is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and the soldiers that have to stand completely still, which is kind of one of those really fascinating and interesting old traditions, is great. I think all the stuff that might seem cliched or might seem like it would just be a tourist trap, yeah, it's a tourist trap, and maybe it is cliched, but it's fantastic. It's exactly as you expect it to be, and I just think it's one of those great city centres you have to see. Even if you went to London and walked from Trafalgar Square to Big Ben, you'd have gone less than a mile and you'd have already seen 5 iconic sites. So,
what time of year would you go?
I wouldn't go in winter. It's grey. It's really wet. It's cold. Summer's super busy. April, May.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah,
April, May. Yeah,
because generally in the UK that seems to be the best weather. So April, May seems to be better weather than July or August. But yeah, I think April's nice. Maybe a bit of chill in the air, but it's not cold. You get some decent sunny days. So yeah, don't go. And also, being in London when it's baking hot and you're trying to get into the underground is pretty desperate. Like it's pretty sticky.
And there's a million people, and I hate traveling in the summer. I hate international travel in the summer, I guess I should say, because everybody's out of school. There's a million kids everywhere. It's super expensive. It's super hot. And if you have kids, that's the only way you can travel, or you're a teacher and that's the only time off. I totally get that. But if you don't and you can avoid it, I always recommend going places in the shoulder seasons. Going in April, May, September, October, while the weather is still nice, it's not super hot or super crowded, and I like that a lot more.
Yeah, I agree. The last time I was in London was last October, and we rode the London Eye. And I know your take on going up tall buildings to look at stuff, but going up the London Eye at sunset in October was absolutely fantastic. And you think about, you can just see every famous site in London. You can see.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah, so I agree. Shoulder season. Just a couple of recommendations. Speaking of sunset, walking across London Bridge at sunset is pretty spectacular, and for 5 minutes you understand what it means to be a commuter in London. Super busy, buzzing with life, but amazing view down the river, and you really, for 5 minutes, you get to be a Londoner. And then the other thing, slightly after sunset, that I would really recommend is going to the City of London on a Friday night. So it's a bit of a linguistic quirk, but the City of London, when people say the City of London, they're referring to the financial district of London, which has been made famous in recent years by buildings like the Gherkin and the Shard. But it's basically the financial capital. It's where all the trading goes on, and it's where all the banks are. And so if you go there on a Friday night, all the city boys, who are they're just a special breed. We all know what bankers are like. Lots of money, flash suits, probably taking a lot of coke, drinking a lot of champagne. And basically on a Friday afternoon, evening, they all spill out into the area around the City of London. And you can have such a good night out because everyone there, apart from me when I was there, had tons of money and had a really stressful work week and were just getting buzzed, basically. And it's a really, really fun night out. And you can also go to a lot of the pubs that Jack the Ripper frequented, which are very close to the City of London. So
I've done a Jack the Ripper tour.
it's crazy, hey?
And it's awesome.
Yeah. Some of those pubs are crazy because, yeah, they know, they never identified Jack the Ripper, but they know where he drank.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, God, I went to Madame Tussauds.
Yeah, the waxwork.
That's
place.
good there. It's the original one, so like there's one in Vegas that's horrible. It's like super small and super expensive. That's with the same name, but the one in London's original. It's really good. There's also the London Dungeon.
Yeah.
Which is a wax museum that's like all the torture and stuff. I think that's actually really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Madame Tussauds is great, actually. Couple more recommendations. I'm aware we're just kind of blathering about how London is. We won't stay on too long, but a couple of recommendations, kind of random ones. I mentioned about the City of London on a Friday night. Took me recently to the Alexandra Palace, which is a beautiful old building. It's got an amazing view over London, and it was the former home of the BBC. And that was one of those places, and it's surrounded by parkland, but it's looking at the city. It's just one of those places where I went and thought, how have I never been here? This is awesome. And then you mentioned earlier about getting a curry. Brick Lane. Also on that trip, went to Brick Lane for a curry, and that is just magnificent. So yeah, Brick Lane for a curry. It's a one street that's just lined with curry houses, and there are guys outside trying to tempt you in, and you can kind of negotiate with them. So they'll say, okay, for 10 quid, quid is pounds, 10 pounds, 10 quid each, curry and a naan, and you say, well, there's 8 of us, how will you throw in the rice? Okay, we'll throw in the rice. All right, if we pay 12, will you give us a beer? And the guy's kind of doing the maths in his head, and you can kind of haggle with them to get the best deal walking down Brick Lane for a curry, and that's great. It's right next to Spitalfields Market, which is an amazing experience in itself. So, yeah.
And are there different curries? Like, do you have ordered different stuff, or do you just say I want a curry?
No, there's loads of different types.
What type should you get?
What type should you? It depends what you like. Obviously, a chicken saag, SAAG, is chicken with spinach. Anything with spinach I'm into. Why are you putting me on the spot now? I'm drawing a blank. A Rogan Josh. I like a Rogan Josh. Karai. I recommend a Karai. I mean, I'm a bit of a curry fiend, and I always like to try something I haven't tried before, so I'm probably not great at recommendations because I don't remember what I've ordered. I'm always looking for something new. But yeah, a saag's a good place to start, medium hot, if you like spinach. And then for me, it's garlic naan is non-negotiable. So yeah, curry on Brick Lane. And obviously Britain had huge migration from India and Pakistan in the middle of the last century, and that has meant that British food is pretty spectacular. So yeah, you can find a good curry in London.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that sounds great.
I guess the only thing left to do is me and you book a trip there.
I would love to go, and I would say last thing, if someone's preparing to go, with all the pop culture and stuff that has come from England and from London, like what must-see movies would you tell people to watch before they go to London to prepare for their trip?
God, I'm not much of a movie buff, That's really bad, isn't it?
I would say
you're the movie guy.
I am. I would say any of James Bonds. I mean, a lot of them take place over the world, but they generally have things that happen in London.
Yeah, there was
meeting with MI6 or whatever in London.
Wasn't there one of the Pierce Brosnan ones where he rode a speedboat off the Millennium Dome, which is now the O2, and the MI6 and MI5 buildings, which are the intelligence services in Britain, are pretty iconic, and they've been on plenty of Bond films. Yeah, London. Sorry, London? Bond.
And what's the? I can't think right now. What's the one with about Guy Fawkes with the where he's?
Well, this Guy Fawkes Night is celebrated on November 5th every year in Britain, and that was when a guy crawled under the House of Commons about 500 years ago and put dynamite there to kill all the MPs and all the politicians, and the plot was foiled, but his attempt to overthrow the government is celebrated every year on Guy Fawkes Night, which is 5th of November.
V for Vendetta. That's the movie.
V for Vendetta. Okay.
Have you seen that?
I have not.
Oh, that's an amazing, amazing movie that takes place in London. And it's really, with everything going on in the world right now, I think it's really an important movie for people to watch.
What about Notting Hill? One of the, I have to say...
Is that Hugh Grant?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the rom-com genre, but as rom-coms go, that is one of the better ones. And it's very London. So Notting Hill is one of the nicer West London neighbourhoods for people that aren't aware of that. So
or Austin Powers, that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah, exactly. That's basically what England's like. If you've seen Austin Powers, you know what to expect. Guy, you put me on the spot there. I'm not a movie buff, but yeah, I mean, you think about the bands that have come out of London. It's kind of a who's who of music. So yeah, London will not disappoint. London will be what you hope it is. It will deliver on your expectations. And for me, I would never want to live in a huge city like London, but as a place, if you give me 5 days to show off a city, then it's London. I think it's the best city in the world to visit.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, yeah, let's go sometime.
All right, it's a date, and we will speak next week.
Okay.